Welcome to the library at Normandy High School for today's History in the First Person program, Being a Change Agent. We're really glad you're with us today, and we're here at Normandy High School because they're one of 33 school districts in the St. Louis metropolitan region who's part of the Gateway to Change movement. Individual students and all sorts of groups of students who are making a difference in their community. Today, you're going to have the chance to learn about their movement, you're going to have a chance to find out what they're doing as change agents, and we're also going to talk big picture questions about what it means to be a change agent. What skills do you need? What strategies should you think about employing? How can you develop your own resilience as you try to strive for change yourself? As always, we welcome your interactivity in our program. To those of you who are joining us live, you can email us your questions to live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org. We're also available for you to respond on Twitter today. The hashtag is Gateway to Change, and we're looking forward to Twitter concepts and Twitter ideas coming throughout the program. Thanks to those schools who've already registered in advance for taking advantage of a couple of other interactive options. We're glad you've sent us your advanced questions. We're going to weave those into the program. And we also have a couple of schools who took advantage of the opportunity to show us videos of their own change agent projects that we're going to be able to share with our nationwide audience. All that interactivity makes what we're talking about today exceptionally important as we learn from young people who are change agents. I'm happy to bring in Dr. Derek Mitchell right now, the principal of Normandy High School, who was gracious enough to let us be here in the building today. Dr. Mitchell, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Tim. It's our pleasure.
Talk a little bit about the students from your perspective as a principal. When you hear the phrase change agent, and obviously you're going through change as a principal all the time, dealing with new educational initiatives, whatever the district needs to do. What comes to your mind as a change agent? What's the word you want to give the students?
Student voice. That really comes to mind first and foremost. I think it gives our students a chance and an opportunity to exercise their voice around the issues of social justices and injustices.
And just because you're not going to be able to with us the whole program, obviously as a person who is a change agent, you deal with moments that are fantastic, and every once in a while you deal with a moment that doesn't necessarily go as well as you would like to. Absolutely. Do you have any kind of advice you'd give to folks, especially students, as they take on those kinds of roles? How do they develop resiliency? How do they work through those tough times?
I think it's a matter of just what I would call supererogation, going above and beyond the call of duty, getting out into the community, seeing what the problems are, and being problem solvers and not problem initiators.
Thanks so much for being with us today, and thanks so much for having us here at your space.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. The pleasure is ours.
Let's find out about this Gateway to Change program and the wonderful work that these students are doing right now. And when something as important as Ferguson and the repercussions after Ferguson happen in a community, it's vitally important that all people have a chance to have their voices heard. It's wonderful to see this kind of support for our student voices.
So this is an exciting venture that a lot of students throughout the city are going on together. It's the Gateway to Change movement. St. Louis City and County are participating in.
What does race mean to you?
Like, by my race, you automatically think you know who I am or what I stand for because of things that you've seen from other people who look just like me.
We are the human race. Like, we don't have to categorize people based on their appearance or their beliefs.
If you don't talk about what's out there, what's the problem, you can never fix it. So talk about it and be open to talking about race.
Just break the cycle and break what people think about you, because you can grow up around many negative influences and many negative things that you see in your life, and you can influence somebody else by being just who you are instead of agreeing to what society's rules have for you.
People need to be heard. I think that's what we're doing right now. Everybody's giving out their ideas.
To start a movement, you also have to take action with that movement, and I think that's something that we are trying to fulfill at this summit.
I've gone to all of my family and told them about this and told them what a great experience it's been, and they have gone to their friends and talked about it, and everyone's coming to me like, wow, you know, you've inspired me to make a change.
The future's ahead of you, and adults will have to listen because you are the next generation.
These are not just events. These are not just, oh, let's have a panel for an hour. We want this to continue. The situation in Ferguson happened. You all took the opportunity, and you could have just talked about problems, but instead, you're a part of this movement. You're creating the change.
You're going to have the opportunity to meet some of the individuals you just saw in that video, individuals who are indeed creating the change. Part of the program today, we're also interested in getting your responses to what famous change agents have said throughout time about change and processes that involved in change. And I want to start with a quote from our current president, Barack Obama, who said, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We're the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And indeed, that's what these students and folks are doing with Gateway to Change. And I want to turn my attention now to Drew Schwartz, the founder of the project, one of the individuals who's been working with it a long period of time. Drew, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having us, Tim. It's an honor and a pleasure.
But let's take this moment to go to Christina and Mary Catherine, because I know things are happening on our Twitter wall and things are happening with our email questions. So, Christina, what are we learning?
They are, Tim. So in reference to Jalen's point about planning and overcoming obstacles, one Twitter follower asks, what is the biggest obstacle you have overcome with the Gateway to Change movement?
Oh, Aaliyah, I'll let Jalen think about that, but I'll let you answer that question first. Is there an obstacle you can think that you've been able to overcome, or some difference that it's made for you as a result of your involvement in the Gateway to Change project?
Well, me as a person, I'm really off to the side. I don't hang out with a lot of people. I only have a few friends because I'm really skeptical about the people that I talk to. So Gateway to Change actually helped me open up more and talk to more people and get to know people and their backgrounds and stuff. Cause I recently met a girl walking when I was going to the store, and she was from China, and so it really helped me basically expand my communication with others.
Wonderful. And Jalen, since it was a follow-up to what you had said earlier, something crossed your mind to share?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we overcome day after day is the question of money. I think often the question is, how can we afford to do this? How can we afford to have an event? How can we afford to impact people? Because often, as being a 17-year-old, as being a 16-year-old, or being a 15-year-old, you can't go out and find money easy. It's easy to impact people. So we do all these events really looking to impact people in our community by finding community organizations to support us. So instead of going to a Walmart for sponsorships, we go to small businesses to help us out, because we understand that a small business really wants to impact their community. So when it comes to money, we go to that.
Community is an important word. That's something that you've brought up to me on multiple occasions. It does take a village to raise a child. There's a whole community that you're interested in getting involved in the project, and you're doing that on a regular basis. Mary Catherine, do we have an email question you'd like to offer?
Yeah, definitely. We have one from Lily, and it goes along with the projects and stuff. She asks, what advice can you give on creating a manageable project, and how do you balance dreams and realities?
Oh my goodness. Dr. Anderson, I'll let the students think while you ponder that question first. What ideas come to your mind based on Lily's question?
Well, and so the idea of advice on creating a manageable project, I think one of the pieces that was already hit on so well is prioritizing. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, and there's so many issues that need to be tackled. So it's really gaining consensus and just prioritizing where, what's kind of most important to us, and then where are we going to start. When they had the Ferguson unrest, and we bordered Ferguson, and everyone was walking out of their classrooms and their schools, and our staff said, and students said, Dr. Anderson, we got to walk out. We're 100% almost African American, and we haven't walked out yet. We got to walk out. So we said, okay, where are we going to go? That's the first question. But second, what do we want? And it came down to three things that our students said they wanted: minority on the police force, community policing, and body cameras. And so we then said, okay, let's walk up to the police station and give our demands, and let's get back to school. I mean, so it's this piece of first starting with what's your priority, and then kind of sketching out how you're going to get there, and knowing that resources often will limit, but they can actually be a stopping point. And so being really creative about that.
Wonderful, thanks. And thanks for those questions. We look forward to getting more questions and more Twitter ideas in throughout the program. We've obviously talked about the beginnings of Gateway to Change and projects that are happening. And Nelson Mandela once famously said, we'd be interested in anybody's response to this quotation, one of the things I learned was that until I changed myself, I could not change others. Drew, talk a little bit about how that idea is part of what you're doing through Gateway to Change, and how you're actually building that in as you think about students talking with each other and hearing from each other, and in essence changing internally as well as they do this external work.
Sure. It's a domino effect, I think. That internal positive change breeds external positive change. I think oftentimes, Tim, it's really easy to compartmentalize different aspects of our life and different topics. And in schools, there's a multitude of different topics, right? We have, certain academics, math and science, and then we have, PE and art and extracurriculars. And then, oh, by the way, we have socio-emotional issues and communication and socioeconomic and so on. And it can seem very overwhelming. But I think what we're trying to do with the students leading us is say, let's start with our own self-conceptions. Let's start with our own self-care in terms of mental health, in terms of, I know this is difficult work, but when we come up with barriers so that we're equipped, all of us as students are equipped with different strategies to take care of ourselves. And from that, then they can go out with more confidence, self-assuredness, grit, etc. But it does start internally. We have three, actually including you, 4 folks who you might step back and say, how is Dr. Anderson doing what she's doing? How are these amazing student leaders speaking across the country and making plans for college? And their circumstances were difficult. Well, that drive started internally. And that's what I'm so inspired by as I look around the group here.
One of the school groups that accepted our invitation to send us a video about a change agent project that they're aware of just shows us a different example of that. This comes from a young man named Reese Rosenblum, who's at Ladue Horton Watkins High School, and it's a change agent project that he was aware of. So let's share it now.
Camp Jumpstart is a weight loss camp for kids ages 9 to 17. We take boys and girls. And what we're doing this weekend is the Weekend Leap, and that is kind of a weekend sampler of Camp Jumpstart. We are doing like a lot of the classes that we normally do, like aerobics and strength training and nutrition. We actually have one girl that I think is coming for 8 weeks because of this weekend, so she liked it that much.
Well, the camp looks like it has a lot of nice people. The activities are really fun. I really want to go.
And the young lady you see at the beginning of that program, that's a high school student that he knows who just decided that this is the project she was interested in, how she wanted to make a change and make a difference in other people's lives. And it's become something now that exists for kids to go to in the summer. There's all sorts of ways you can think about making that difference as you come up with what it is you want to get involved with. And Dr. Anderson, as you think about that process, I could go this way. You talked about prioritizing and the various things you could do. What crosses your mind in terms of, like, how do you evaluate yourself in the process of change and what you're doing or not doing as successfully as you might like? How would you talk to the students about the importance of self-evaluation and making that a process of how you monitor what it is, the work you want to do to make your change agent work successful?
Well, so in Jennings, we try to have conversations, social justice conversations all the time. We embed them in our literature. Yesterday, I was at a Socratic seminar in an 8th grade classroom, and they were reading Mississippi Burning, and they were comparing it to, the Mike Brown piece. They also were just having conversations about race and how they would feel. So part of it, and that's the beauty about this work, it's about courageous conversations. But the other part is it cannot stop at the conversation. So often, courageous conversations are talking for a long time, getting and having really good conversations, uncovering some things. But by having that, you uncover things that you believe. You also uncover what others believe. Sometimes you recognize things in your own self that you didn't even realize, perspectives that you have, internalized racist kinds of things that we all carry, privilege and points of privilege that you didn't even realize you experienced yourself or that others did or did not. So the conversation is huge in terms of that self-realization of who am I? What do I believe? How do I see the world, and how does the world see me? Those are the pieces of that courageous conversation that are really important, and that's the self-check. The other self-check, at least in our mind and in our classrooms, is each other. Self-checking each other about things that either are offensive or questioning things that we see, because we may see the same two things and have very different opinions about them. And so I think we have a responsibility of holding each other accountable as well as holding ourselves accountable. One, to have these conversations, but then to make sure that our actions support what we believe and what we say. I think that's pretty critical. So for us, we, bleed this into all that we do within the school system, and I think that's a huge piece. Schools are the center of the community, and so this work being palatable right there at the school doors.
That's wonderful. I think that's a wonderful summary. There's another organization that we became familiar with as a result of another student video that was presented to us called Circus Harmony, which is a group in St. Louis that's doing a lot of really wonderful things around a similar subject matter. And so we want to share their story with you now as we move forward.
Circus Harmony's mission is to teach the art of life through circus education. So through the teaching and performing of circus arts, we help children defy gravity, soar with confidence, and leap over social barriers all at the same time. We use circus to build character in individuals and build connections between communities.
It's made me a lot more comfortable around people. Before I was really shy and I couldn't talk to anybody, and now I can go out and perform in front of thousands of people and it doesn't bother me.
Circus Harmony promotes joy through juggling and harmony through handsprings.
Look at the news from St. Louis. Look at the news from anywhere. It's so negative, it's so divisive. And come to Circus Harmony's little ring where kids from all different backgrounds are working together and really showing people what can happen when you focus on what connects you instead of what separates you.
In 2007, Circus Harmony began Peace Through Pyramids when they traveled to Israel and collaborated with the Galilee Circus, a Jewish Arab youth circus from Israel.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Was an eye-opening experience. Seeing another culture and knowing that just being a part of this and being a part of one common thing, the circus, could transport me to Israel and bring me to all different cultures and all different people and make all different friends almost halfway across the globe. It was really kind of mind-blowing, and it made the world feel small.
I enjoy that I get to perform with different people from around the world and just show who I am.
We have young people from East St. Louis, from the north side, who have been to China, Australia, Russia, Turkey, Argentina, Spain, France, whose parents have never left St. Louis. It's amazing.
It's also made me kind of see everyone as having potential. Here I see that anyone can do pretty much anything.
Circus teaches me to not judge anybody because we're all the same, and no matter what, we're all a team.
Drew, that piece ends talking about people realizing potential that they didn't necessarily know they had and being a team and working together. Obviously, it's been a large amount of people who've brought this project to these students. Talk about the importance of teamwork and working with people and maybe the challenges of doing that as well as you begin to seek change.
Sure. You know, if you think about 2016 now, here we have, through social media, through technology, the capacity through our infrastructure to literally connect with any part of the world at any time. And so with the world becoming more and more globalized, and with folks by necessity having to develop skills in order to interact with people of different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different genders, the list goes on. The potential that you talk about there is the systems and the processes that Dr. Anderson and Jalen referred to, because we need to match our technological prowess with our ability to create systems in person and utilize that technology to capitalize on that potential. And I think that what these student leaders are doing in conjunction with many adult leaders is saying, how can we create channels of communication, create this ability to use soft skills? And soft skills aren't lesser than the other skills because our hearts are soft and our minds are soft, our brains are soft. They're pretty important. How can we use technology? How can we use in-person infrastructures to create the future where we can interact and we can succeed in a globalized society? And that's potential actualized. We just get to sit back and say, wow, look at what these amazing student leaders are doing. And that's what excites me personally.
Very cool. Let's go back to Christina and Mary Catherine and see what the world is asking us about. So Christina, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. Allie from St. Louis is about to graduate high school, and she's going to be moving away. So she wants to know how she can be a social change agent within her community. Do you have any advice for her?
Jalen, you're about to hit the big bad world of moving on as well, right?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead. Give Ali an idea.
You know, I think a really important piece of that is understanding what change you're looking to make. What area of impact, where's your heart at? And when you get to your new city and you have your new friends, identify what a common problem is in that community and look to solve it. And the benefit is we have technology to do that. So because you're in LA or because you're in New York or because you're in Chicago, Illinois, you can still be connected back to your St. Louis family. And I think the most important piece of that is understanding how to tell the story of what's happening. And the reason any business is successful, any project is successful, is because they've understood how to use technology to amplify the story of what's happening in their community.
Oh, very cool. Mary Catherine, some additional email questions you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. We have one for Jason, and this kind of takes things in a different direction, but I think it'll be good. Is there anything about your project that didn't go as you'd hoped, or you now think would have gone better if you had done it differently?
Oh, Aaliyah, I'll put you on the spot first, I guess. And it could be your Gateway to Change project. It could be another project you've been involved with. But I think it's an excellent question because obviously you're going to deal with the concept of failure every once in a while. While you're thinking about what you want to say, let's bring up another quotation that we actually have that fits this beautifully. It's from Winston Churchill, who says, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." So we're all going to deal with failure. Things aren't always going to go according to plan. So let's take that question, Leah. What pops into your head?
Well, with our Change Agent project, we're creating a video of small videos of us basically doing stuff in our everyday life and putting it together to show how we are different from Ladue, but we still have similarities. But the difficult thing about it that we've been doing is everyone hasn't really been able to come together because we've been so busy with school. Because most of us that's in Normandy, we're seniors, and most of the kids in Ladue, they're juniors. So we have more responsibilities on our hand at the moment. So it's been really hard trying to communicate with them and get it all put together, but it's coming along well.
Great. Well, those logistical concerns are an important thing for people to always keep in mind. Dr. Anderson, on a scale from a school district perspective, or your work as a change agent, how would you deal with that question about the difficulties and how you overcame them and moved forward?
Well, you know, one, I do think, Aaliyah, which I'm so proud of you. You talked about confidence, and here you are on TV talking just and so smoothly. You know, that piece of creating time. Time is all that we have, and everything we do is an investment in time, and it's the one thing you can't get back once it's gone. And so being really strategic about how you invest your time and also being strategic about how you create time. So, you know, you have these projects and we say, here's what we're involved with, here's what we're passionate about, but then being willing to create the time. I mean, all of us had to create time to send students or for students to create time to come together. Aaliyah had to make a choice. I want to be part of this particular project, even being here today. And so that idea of ensuring that that priority matches and our actions match what we say, I think that's one of those pieces that's critical. The challenge, resources are always a challenge, but again, that's that creativity. I love how Jalen talked about this work of getting the story. Good work is good work, but if you don't tell the story, who are you going to inspire and how will it be replicated? And so I think thinking about those logistical pieces allows you to overcome some of the challenges, which really are just opportunities. But you know, it also allows you to really think through what things will be a stopping point for you. But the commitment of time is huge. For me, I mean, really, when I look at the schedule, even in Jennings, to talk about all the challenges, you know, the food pantry, the Hope House, all of the things that we've started, it's really been intentional about this is where my time is best spent, and this supports what I believe, and this supports what I say.
Well, Jalen, give the students a concrete example from your experience with the Change Agent project that you guys have been working on, specifically maybe picking up on that idea of time, because obviously they, like you and Aaliyah, are high school juniors and seniors or sophomores, whatever the case may be, and every once in a while the teacher probably would like them to actually study the work that they're supposed to be doing in class. I think Dr. Anderson might approve of that idea. So give them some examples of how you faced that time issue and overcame it.
Yeah, I think I've had experiences where I think from the beginning of the project, I understand this is going to take maybe 50 hours of work. And I think for anybody, that's a lot of time up front to even think about committing to a project impacting people. But what I've understood as I've kind of grown and as I've done these projects with Gateway to Change and I've traveled for Gateway to Change is how can I take 50 hours and divide that by, let's say, a 4-week period? Or how can I spread 50 hours over 2 months or 3 months? And when I can break down that big lump of time and spread it out over time and actually make that progress day by day and hit these small objectives, I can make that 2-mile run a lot easier because I've taken it step by step. So I think in any experience that I've had with Gateway to Change is we have big dreams, we have our big visions, but how can I break it down into these small milestones to hit that when I complete those milestones, I'm done with the project.